When people hear the phrase emotional cheating, they often picture secret messages, late-night phone calls, or a growing closeness that feels just a little too intimate. But what most people miss are the hidden reasons behind why someone drifts into that space in the first place. Emotional cheating rarely begins with a grand decision to betray someone. It often starts quietly, subtly, in the corners of unmet needs, unspoken resentments, fading curiosity, or personal insecurities that were never fully addressed. To understand why people cheat emotionally, we have to look deeper than the surface behaviors and explore the psychological and emotional undercurrents that drive them there. One of the most overlooked reasons people emotionally cheat is not because they stopped loving their partner, but because they stopped feeling seen. Being seen is different from being loved. Love can exist in routine, in shared responsibilities, in loyalty. But feeling seen requires attention, curiosity, and emotional presence. Over time, especially in long-term relationships, partners can fall into patterns where they assume they already know each other completely. Conversations become logistical instead of emotional. The spark of asking, "How are you really feeling?" fades into, "Did you pay the bill?" or "What's for dinner?" When someone else comes along and asks questions that dig beneath the surface, it can feel intoxicating. Not because that new person is necessarily better, but because they are offering attention that feels fresh and focused. The person who emotionally cheats may not consciously think, "I'm replacing my partner." Instead, they think, "I finally feel understood again." Another hidden driver is emotional neglect, which can happen even in relationships that appear stable from the outside. Emotional neglect is not always intentional. It can stem from stress, work pressure, parenting responsibilities, or personal struggles. When one partner feels consistently dismissed, minimized, or unheard, they may begin to seek emotional validation elsewhere. Humans are wired for connection. When that connection is missing at home, the mind naturally scans for it somewhere else. Emotional cheating often begins as harmless venting. A coworker becomes someone you complain to about your partner. A friend becomes someone you confide in about your loneliness. Over time, the emotional intimacy that should belong primarily within the relationship begins to transfer outward. What makes this so dangerous is that it often feels justified. The person tells themselves they are just talking, just sharing, just needing support. But emotional intimacy is powerful, and once it shifts, it creates a subtle detachment from the primary relationship. Validation plays an enormous role in emotional infidelity. Many people carry unresolved insecurities from childhood or previous relationships. They may struggle with self-worth, attractiveness, competence, or desirability. In long-term relationships, validation can become less frequent, not because attraction disappears, but because familiarity dulls the habit of expressing admiration. When someone new offers compliments, admiration, or enthusiastic interest, it can feel like oxygen to someone who has been quietly suffocating in self-doubt. Emotional cheating becomes less about the other person and more about reclaiming a lost sense of self. The attention feels like proof that they still matter, that they are still interesting, still attractive, still valuable. It becomes addictive because it soothes insecurities that were never fully healed. Another hidden reason people cheat emotionally is fear of confrontation. Instead of addressing dissatisfaction directly with their partner, some individuals avoid difficult conversations. They may fear conflict, rejection, or the possibility that their needs will not be met, even if they speak up. Rather than risking discomfort at home, they turn to someone else who feels easier to talk to. Emotional affairs can become a way of coping with problems indirectly. Instead of saying, "I feel distant from you," they invest in someone who makes them feel close. Instead of saying, "I'm unhappy," they chase moments of happiness elsewhere. Avoidance may reduce tension temporarily, but it creates deeper fractures in the long run. Monotony is another powerful yet understated contributor. Long-term relationships naturally settle into routine. While stability can be comforting, it can also feel predictable. Humans crave novelty. Novelty stimulates dopamine, the brain chemical associated with excitement and reward. A new emotional connection brings unpredictability, new stories, new reactions, new energy. It feels alive in contrast to the steady rhythm of an established partnership. Emotional cheating can become a way to inject excitement into a life that feels overly structured. The person may not want to leave their partner. They may genuinely value the life they have built, but they also want to feel that spark of discovery again. The tragedy is that novelty is not exclusive to new people. It can be cultivated within existing relationships. However, doing so requires intentional effort, and many people drift toward the easier path of finding it elsewhere. Unmet emotional needs are perhaps the most direct cause. Some people need frequent verbal affection. Others need deep intellectual conversations. Some crave playful teasing and humor. Others desire spiritual alignment. When these needs go unfulfilled for extended periods, dissatisfaction quietly accumulates. If someone outside the relationship happens to naturally meet one of those unmet needs, the connection can deepen rapidly. Emotional compatibility in one area can feel like overall compatibility, even if it is only a fragment. The danger lies in comparison. The emotional cheater begins to compare the excitement of the new connection with the comfort of the established one, often ignoring the complexities and imperfections that any long-term relationship carries. Sometimes, emotional cheating is rooted in unresolved trauma. Individuals who experienced inconsistent love growing up may unconsciously seek multiple sources of attachment. They may struggle to rely entirely on one person for emotional security. Forming an emotional connection outside the relationship can be a way of spreading vulnerability so that no single loss feels devastating. This is rarely a conscious strategy. It operates beneath awareness, driven by fear of abandonment. By maintaining more than one emotionally significant connection, the person may feel subconsciously safer. If one relationship fails, they are not left entirely alone. There is also the factor of identity evolution. People change over time. Interests shift, beliefs evolve, priorities transform. In some relationships, partners grow in parallel. In others, they grow in different directions. When someone meets a person who aligns more closely with who they are becoming, it can create an emotional pull. They may feel more understood in their new passions or perspectives. Instead of renegotiating the relationship at home and inviting their partner into their evolving identity, they might find it easier to bond with someone who already fits. Emotional cheating can therefore become a symptom of growth that was never communicated or integrated within the primary partnership. Another hidden driver is resentment. Unresolved resentment builds emotional walls. When someone feels unappreciated, overburdened, or wronged, they may withdraw emotionally from their partner. This withdrawal creates space for someone else to enter. Emotional affairs sometimes begin as revenge fantasies, even if subtle. The person may not actively plan to hurt their partner, but a part of them may feel entitled to seek comfort elsewhere because they feel wronged. The narrative becomes, "After everything I've put up with, I deserve this." That justification can make emotional boundaries easier to cross. Digital culture has amplified the ease of emotional cheating. Social media, messaging apps, and online communities provide constant access to new connections. The barrier to forming intimate conversations has never been lower. Emotional cheating can start with likes, comments, shared jokes, and private messages. Because there is no physical contact, it is often minimized. The person may convince themselves it is harmless because it exists behind a screen. But emotional intimacy does not require physical proximity. In fact, sometimes the distance makes it easier to open up, because vulnerability feels less risky when it is not face-to-face. Another subtle reason is boredom with oneself. Sometimes emotional cheating is less about dissatisfaction with a partner and more about dissatisfaction with one's own life. When someone feels stagnant, uninspired, or disconnected from their passions, a new emotional connection can feel like a catalyst for change. The excitement is misinterpreted as love, when in reality it is a reflection of personal awakening. The new person becomes associated with feeling alive again. Instead of exploring new hobbies, goals, or personal development independently, the person channels that need for renewal into a relationship dynamic. Emotional immaturity also plays a role. Some individuals struggle with impulse control and boundary setting. They may enjoy flirting and attention without fully grasping the emotional consequences. They tell themselves they can handle it, that they will not let it go too far. But emotional bonds often deepen gradually, and by the time they recognize the intensity, they are already invested. Emotional maturity involves recognizing when a connection is crossing a line and choosing to step back. Without that awareness, lines blur easily. There is also the dynamic of comparison culture. Exposure to curated images of other relationships can create unrealistic expectations. When someone perceives that others are experiencing constant passion or romance, they may feel disappointed in their own normal fluctuations. If a new person seems to offer the excitement they believe they are missing, it can feel like confirmation that something is wrong at home. Instead of understanding that all relationships cycle through highs and lows, they assume that their dissatisfaction is permanent and solvable only by seeking connection elsewhere. Fear of aging and mortality can unexpectedly drive emotional affairs. As people reach certain life stages, they may confront feelings of lost youth or missed opportunities. An emotional connection with someone new can feel like reclaiming a younger version of themselves. It becomes symbolic, not just relational. The validation and excitement offer reassurance that they are still desirable and capable of intense connection. This is less about the partner and more about an internal existential reckoning. Some emotional affairs are born from shared struggle. When two people go through a stressful experience together, such as a demanding project or a personal crisis, vulnerability can accelerate bonding. Sharing fears, late nights, and problem-solving creates intimacy. If one of those individuals is already in a relationship that feels emotionally distant, the contrast can be powerful. The shared struggle becomes a foundation for emotional closeness that might not have developed under calmer circumstances. In certain cases, emotional cheating is linked to an inability to tolerate discomfort. Long-term love requires navigating periods of frustration, misalignment, and emotional dryness. Some people lack the resilience to sit with those phases. Instead of working through them, they escape into a new connection that feels easier. The new bond is untested by conflict, responsibility, or shared history. It exists in a bubble of idealization. Because it has not endured hardship, it feels lighter and more harmonious. Self-sabotage is another hidden factor. Individuals who struggle with feeling unworthy of stable love may unconsciously create situations that threaten it. Forming an emotional connection outside the relationship introduces risk. If discovered, it can destabilize everything. On a subconscious level, this chaos may feel familiar. For someone used to instability, a calm and secure relationship can feel foreign. Emotional cheating disrupts that stability, aligning reality with internal expectations of eventual loss. Communication breakdown is central in many cases. When partners stop sharing dreams, fears, and daily reflections, the emotional bridge weakens. Silence becomes the norm. In that silence, loneliness grows. If someone else becomes the primary confidant, the shift may go unnoticed at first. Emotional cheating is often defined not by sexual attraction, but by secrecy and exclusivity. When you begin to hide conversations, delete messages, or feel that your partner would be hurt if they knew the depth of your bond with someone else, it signals that intimacy has crossed a boundary. Another hidden reason is the desire to feel chosen. In established relationships, especially those formed years ago, the sense of active choice can fade. Life's circumstances, shared assets, or family structures create commitment, but not always conscious daily choosing. When someone new expresses interest, it feels like being selected again. That feeling of fresh desire can reignite self-esteem. Emotional cheating becomes a way of reliving the early stages of courtship without sacrificing the stability of the primary relationship, at least initially. Some individuals struggle with differentiating between friendship and emotional dependency. Close friendships are healthy and important. However, when a friendship begins to replace the partner as the primary emotional support, and when attraction or secrecy is involved, lines blur. Emotional dependency outside the relationship can intensify gradually. Because the interactions may appear innocent on the surface, it becomes easy to rationalize their depth. Power dynamics can also contribute if someone feels powerless or undervalued in their relationship. An external emotional bond where they feel admired or influential can restore a sense of control. The shift in dynamic can be deeply reinforcing. It satisfies psychological needs that feel unmet at home. Ultimately, emotional cheating rarely emerges from a single cause. It is usually a convergence of unmet needs, personal insecurities, environmental opportunities, and unaddressed relational tensions. The hidden reasons are often less dramatic than people expect. They are rooted in longing, fear, avoidance, and human vulnerability. Understanding these hidden motivations does not excuse betrayal, but it does illuminate its complexity. Emotional cheating is less about villainy and more about disconnection. It is a signal that something within the individual or the relationship requires attention. When partners cultivate emotional transparency, curiosity, and intentional effort, they reduce the silent spaces where outside connections can take root. The real lesson beneath emotional infidelity is the importance of proactive intimacy. Waiting until loneliness becomes unbearable makes temptation stronger, but nurturing emotional closeness daily, through small consistent acts of attention and affirmation, creates resilience. When people feel deeply seen, valued, and safe expressing dissatisfaction, the need to seek those experiences elsewhere diminishes. In the end, emotional cheating is not just about secrecy or hidden messages. It is about unmet longings that found expression in the wrong place. It is about conversations that were never had, fears that were never voiced, and needs that were never fully understood. By exploring these hidden reasons honestly, individuals and couples gain the opportunity not just to prevent betrayal, but to build deeper, more conscious love that leaves less room for emotional escape.